Gonna trouble the water.
Naaman was the general of the army under the king of Aram. He was important to his master, who held him in the highest esteem, because it was by him that God had given victory to Aram. A truly great man, but afflicted with a grievous skin disease. It so happened that Aram, on one of its raiding expeditions against Israel, captured a young girl who became a maid to Naaman's wife. One day she said to her mistress, "Oh, if only my master could meet the prophet of Samaria, he would be healed of his skin disease."
God's gonna trouble the water. See that host all dressed in white. God's gonna trouble the water. The leader looks like the Israelite. God's gonna trouble the water.
Naaman went straight to his master and reported what the girl from Israel had said. "Well then go," said the king of Aram, "and I'll send a letter of introduction to the king of Israel." So he went off, taking with him about 750 pounds of silver, 150 pounds of gold, and 10 sets of clothes. Naaman delivered the letter to the king of Israel, and the letter read, "When you get this letter, you'll know that I have personally sent my servant Naaman to you. Heal him of his skin disease." When the king of Israel read the letter, he was terribly upset, ripping his robe to pieces. He said, "Am I a god with the power to bring death or life, that I get orders to heal this man from his disease? What's going on here? That king's trying to pick a fight, that's what." But Elisha, the man of God, heard what had happened, that the king of Israel was so distressed that he'd ripped his robe to shreds. So he sent word to the king, "Why are you so upset ripping your robe like this? Send him to me, so that he'll learn there is a prophet in Israel." So Naaman, with his horses and chariots, arrived in style and stopped at Elisha's door.
As Jesus went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?"
Naaman, an important general of the king's army, found himself diagnosed with a life-altering disease. He would have been judged and kicked out of his community because of his leprosy, sending him to live in the wilderness, losing all he had worked his whole life for.
As Jesus walked along in his ministry, he found a blind man, a man who had never been part of a community, who had never been accepted because he had been labeled the child of sin.
Mental illness comes in all forms and descriptors of diagnoses: depression, anxiety, PTSD, shell shock, bipolar, schizophrenia, OCD, eating disorders, always feeling down. Some are mild cases, others cause significant struggles for those affected and their loved ones.
Just as Naaman would have been kicked out of his community because of his disease, just as the blind man had never been accepted because of his blindness, many times people struggling with mental illness are excluded from family, friendships, and community as they are judged and stigmatized in both small and significant ways.
People of faith unintentionally speak words of judgment. We misunderstand and we fail to support those struggling with mental illness. The blind man was judged and labeled as being the result of his parents' sin.
God invites us to step into the waters of mental illness, into the waters of mental health, into the waters of mental wholeness. God is going to stir up the waters to bring about healing for all of God's people in all of God's creation.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's a-gonna trouble the water.
Elisha sent out a servant to meet him with this message: "Go to the river Jordan and immerse yourself 7 times. Your skin will be healed and you'll be as good as new." But Naaman lost his temper. He spun around saying, "I thought he'd personally come out and meet me, call on the name of God, wave his hand over the diseased spot, and get rid of the disease. The Damascus rivers, Abana and Pharpar, are cleaner by far than any of the rivers in Israel. Why not bathe in them? I'd at least get clean." They stomped off, mad as a hornet.
"Neither this man nor his parents sinned," said Jesus, "but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." People with mental illness are often labeled as mentally weak in faith, lacking ambition, and looked down upon.
You just need to pray harder.
If you were just a little stronger, had a little bit more faith.
God doesn't give you more than you can handle.
Big boys don't cry.
You know you're prettier when you smile.
It's all in your head.
The crowds around Jesus looked to the blind man and asked Jesus, who sinned, this man or his parents? They asked, looking to find fault, looking for who to criticize, to shame, or avoid.
Naaman seeks healing from God and is given directions to go wash in the river. For Naaman, this plan of healing to bathe in the river makes him angry. Maybe he thinks it should be easier, be more magical, should be something different.
Jesus looks to the blind man and instead of seeing sin, sees a beloved child of God. Jesus looks to the blind man and declares that through this man, the great works of God will be revealed.
When one struggles with a mental illness, often the voices of shame and judgment spoken around us prevent people from seeking treatment, medicine, counseling, and healing. Like the crowd surrounding the blind man asking who sinned, and sometimes it's a hesitation for what the treatment for mental illness might mean, like Naaman's hesitation that keeps people from stepping into the waters of healing. Judgment or encouragement that medicine isn't necessary, counseling is for the weak, or that only prayer is needed.
God's a-gonna trouble the water. If you don't believe I've been redeemed, God's a-gonna trouble the water. Just follow me down to Jordan stream. God's a-gonna trouble the water.
After saying this, Jesus spit on the ground, made some mud with saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. "Go," he told him, "wash in the pool of Siloam." This word means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing.
Have you struggled with mental illness? Do you struggle finding joy and light in your life, or even doing simple tasks from time to time or all the time? Do you wish that it were easier to find energy for passions, hobbies, and joy-filling activities?
I remember when I was little, for years, would go visit my grandparents. My grandmother did nothing but lay on the couch all day long. My sister is bipolar, and I can tell when she called me on the telephone by the pitch of her voice whether she was taking her medicine or not. Many struggle. Some have struggled with depression or anxiety for shorter times. Some have struggled overcoming mental illness hurdles to live and thrive how Jesus wants for them. Some have sought out healing and found life-giving joy and light in their lives again.
1 in 4 people struggle with a mental illness at some point in their life. For some, it's a short-term struggle. For some, it's a lifelong struggle or journey to health and wholeness. No matter which it is, healing comes through seeking help, the support of the community, and being sustained by the Holy Spirit in your path to health and wellness.
Jesus offered healing to the blind man in the form of mud on his eyes. The blind man still had to act for his own healing to come to him. He had to go to the pool of Siloam and wash in the waters for healing. Jesus extended the offer of healing. The blind man had to respond and take action for the healing to take place.
In the same way, we are extended opportunities to wade into the waters of healing. We are extended opportunities for medications, therapy, counseling, and community as part of our healing journey. Jesus offers us all these options as mud on our eyes. Like the blind man, we need to respond and take action, wading in to be washed in the waters, to respond by seeking the medication, therapy, counseling, and other opportunities as part of our treatment plan, as part of our healing journey at Jesus.
God's gonna trouble the water. Look over yonder, what do I see? God's gonna trouble the water. The Holy Ghost a-comin' on me. God's gonna trouble the water.
But Naaman's servants caught up with him and said, "Father, if the prophet had asked you to do something hard and heroic, wouldn't you have done it? So why not this simple order to wash and be clean?" So he did it. He went down and he immersed himself in the Jordan 7 times, following the orders of the holy man. And his skin was healed. It was like the skin of a little baby. Naaman was as good as new. He then went back to the holy man. He and his entourage stood before him and said, "I now know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is no God anywhere on earth other than the God of Israel."
One of the most important paths to healing for someone struggling with mental illness is a supportive and loving community that surrounds them. The community around someone struggling can uplift and hold someone in the midst of their struggles, holding their hand as they wade into the waters seeking healing. The community surrounding someone struggling with mental illness can also judge, stigmatize, and condemn mental illness, causing the people struggling to struggle alone in silence and fail to seek healing treatments.
The crowd surrounding the blind man were amazed to see him healed. In response, some asked, "Isn't this man the beggar?" While others said it can't be him. The blind man's healing became a testimony to Jesus' miraculous healing in his life. It became a testimony to the blind man being restored back to his community, to be included in the town life, to being embraced and welcomed, and no longer the outcast.
For Naaman, the community around him became the driving force to follow the prophet's instructions to wash and be clean. Naaman was hesitant to seek healing, thinking it wouldn't work. Naaman's servants surrounded him with support and encouragement to follow the care plan and seek the healing waters. So much of Naaman's resistance feels true to someone who is needing healing from mental illness and is resistant to seeking treatment.
We can be like the crowds around the blind man, supporting and cheering on the one who walks the journey towards healing with mental illness. We can be like the servants that surrounded Naaman and encouraged him to be bold enough and brave enough to seek healing by wading in the waters of the river.
Community was vitally important in Naaman's time, in Jesus' time, and in our current time too. As Christian community, we are called to be support and encouragement, non-judgmental listeners, and to walk with one another for the health and well-being of all of God's beloved in our families, churches, community, and in all of God's creation.
Gonna trouble the